Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Hi, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 34 of Cognitive. And where am I? Well, it is 6 p.m. on Monday, June 28th, 2021, and I'm sitting in a parking lot outside Blaze Pizza in Ventura, California on the coast, because it is currently 75 degrees here. It is currently 100 degrees back on the farm and 80 degrees in the farmhouse with the AC cranked up as much as it can be. In other words, there is a point of no return even on air conditioning, and we are at it. I basically said I needed to get away from home, and there was just nowhere I could go where the heat was any more tolerable. In fact, up on our mountainside, we were considerably cooler than the local towns up in the Antelope Valley or Santa Clarita. So I fled the coop, and I fled it in style. I left the house. I took a little stop at Joann's to pick up a plastic crochet hook for jury duty this week, should I have to present myself. And I had a nice sushi lunch still in Santa Clarita. And then I fled to the coast. And here I sit, me and my pizza, having basically pigged out at dinner too at Blaze. Okie dokie. That was way more of the blather than you needed right now, wasn't it? And yet you've been so patient. In the warm thanks department, speaking of patient, Turbo Gal and Karen RS75, who is otherwise knitting in the Shah, which I suspect is shade, but those other two letters didn't register on Ravelry. Anyway, thank you for the Ravelry comments. It's lovely to hear from you both and your comments, and I can't remember a darn thing you said right now because I'm so loaded on pizza and Diet Pepsi. So all I can tell you is thank you for your comments, and I wish I was being more intelligent, which means it is time to run to what's on my hooks and needles. Well, I finally finished Roving Rug number 2, and it came out sensational. If you are thinking of doing one of the roving rugs, that photo is much more instructive than you think. Blow it up, take a good look at it, because you're going to see that all 3 rovings have different diameters through the actual cord of the roving, through the actual thread itself that I was using to crochet with. The thinnest was probably the gray at the top, which is Desert Churros Roving. And that's what they're called on Etsy, and I cannot recommend them enough. They are charging about a little over $2 an ounce, and that is a very typical price for a highly prepared roving like this. She is getting her rovings done by Moro Fleeceworks, and they always turn out good quality stuff. I've used a bunch of their braids before and their bats, and they're just great. And the middle is unidentified cream from God knows how many years ago, sitting in my stash. And it's very thick, and you just pull it and twist it and do whatever you have to do to get it to fit inside your very large crochet hook. I used a P hook as in perfect. The brown is even older, Stashy Mama, and gave me that years ago, and I mean years. We're probably talking minimum 7-8 years ago. So I was just pulling stuff out of my stash. And if you look carefully, on the right between the white and the brown, you will see a little bit of gray. I had something sitting in my stash, like this little streamer of gray roving. I just crocheted that baby right in. And I don't even care. This was meant to be a scrap rug. I'm really sort of pleased and surprised at how good it came out looking. But the important thing is, this is solid wool. Don't mistake it. If you're looking at this rug and you say, well, Gemma, how much would that rug cost you to make? Based on what I paid Desert Churros, there's 3 pounds of wool in this rug. Each pound was $40, I'm guessing, if I bought them from Desert Churros. So you're looking at $120 worth of rug if you're not using up unloved coarse stuff in your stash, as I was for the first 2 pounds there. The only thing I bought, in other words, was that gray. Now, before you pass out, I bought comparable rugs from Bed Bath & Beyond. I bought a rug considerably smaller than this one for about $60, and it's just a good old-fashioned synthetic big rug. It does not even compare to this. Yes, it has a rubbery backing on it. If I were to change anything about this, I might buy the rubbery backing and just put it on the floor under this rug. There is no backing under it. It has not slid. None of my wool rugs have slid on the tile. That doesn't mean they won't. So yeah, you might want to consider adding a rubber backing. Don't glue it on or anything. Just put it on the floor under the rug. And they sell them. You can get them all over the place. Just look it up. But I haven't put backings under them yet because I'm still in the process of washing them and all that. That's not true. I actually washed them all now at least once. The only part that hasn't been washed is that silver stripe. Which reminds me to tell you, I had already washed this rug and called it done and then said, no, wait, way too thin. And still added the silver stripe. It didn't felt all that much the first time through is what I'm telling you. But you are not going to buy a commercially made rug for $120 that feels like this thing. This thing is 2 inches deep of soft, squishy, insanely wonderful wool. While I would not wear this against my skin anywhere but the soles of my feet, it works great on the soles of my feet. So don't kid yourself. For $120 and perhaps a little more effort. I mean, I just was randomly throwing stuff together here. But if you bought matching rovings, well, this is a pretty good match for what it is. If you went out and bought, say, 3 pounds of roving from the same sheep or buddy sheep in Desert Churros flock, you'd have a sensational rug for $120 that you're not going to get anywhere else. I'm just saying, I love this rug. I cannot tell you how great it is. I get out of the shower, and this is in front of my tub, as you can see, and I walk over to it, avoiding stepping on the tiles. I step on all my wool rugs on my way here. And then I sit on that edge and I let my feet sit comfortably in that beautiful wool while I dry myself and brush my hair, and I'm just loving it. This is a very easy pattern. I just chained as wide as I wanted it to be, and I wanted it to be very wide. It's got to be close to 4 feet. I haven't measured it. And then I just did a crochet, single stitch, crochet 1, and then chain 1. And on the next row, I did the crochet into the chain space. And then on the next row, the crochet was into the chain space, and the chain was over the crochet of the previous row. And I had to mess around with it. There were places like that white, because it was so much thicker in its diameter than the gray. When I did that first row of gray attached to the white, I had to do crochet, single crochet, and then chain 2. And as you can see, who cares? It makes no difference, looks just the same. So this is a very tolerant pattern, and I just cannot get over how happy I am. I took my commercially made rugs and took them out of the main bathroom and hid them back in the shower and toilet stall because I like these so much better. They just give the bathroom this wonderful rustic farm look. Okay, in progress. Well, I was badding. If you look at my pictures, you will see I started a new shawl. To be specific, I have jury duty this week. Today is Monday, and I was not called in today. I get to check in another hour to see if I have to go in tomorrow. And California specifically says you cannot bring knitting. However, there is crochet. Now, the first time I tried to bring crochet to jury duty, the security guard let it through. And then another security guard said, no, she can't have that. And I held up the hook and said, are you kidding me? This isn't dangerous. It was a wooden hook. I said, a pencil would be more dangerous. And the woman got really obnoxious. So the next time, frankly, I put my hair up in a bun and I took a wooden crochet hook and I ran it into my hair to hold my hair up. I also carried an elastic band on one wrist. I walked through security just fine. So apparently wooden crochet hooks in your hair are not a problem. It's when you do the mystic art of crocheting them. Anyway, so since then, it's been several since thens, I've always carried the crochet hook in my hair, and I just carry in the cake of yarn. They can say what they want to say. And then when I'm in there, I pull out Mr. Hook and I crochet. And I have never had a problem sitting around crocheting for hours in a jewelry room. I've never had a problem with anybody complaining about it or any security guard having a problem with it. The rules are about metal knitting needles, and I get that. I wouldn't want one of those babies jabbed into me either. I really wonder why we're allowed to take pens and pencils in, but I wouldn't want a metal needle jabbed into me or used as a weapon against me. However, if some evildoer grabs my crochet hook and tries to use it as a weapon, I think after I stop laughing, I'll ask him if he knows what that is. At any rate, I started the Country Cotton Shawl. This is a really good standby pattern. This is from Lion Brand Yarn. It's free on their website. If you go to my link, you can connect to the pattern you can follow the links through my Ravelry project if you'd like. This is a really easy pattern that gives really good results. Essentially, most of the rows you are doing, oh dear, now I can't even remember. Oh yes, you're doing double crochet, chain one. And every 5 rows you go to double crochet in every previous double crochet and in the chain spaces. So every 5th row is double crochet right the way across. And then after that you go back to double crochet, chain one. So easy. And there is a pattern that comes with it to do an edging, which sometimes I do, sometimes I just don't even bother. But I like the edging. It's a little fan pattern that goes on the edge. And they tell you to do it across the straight top edge. Actually, I think it looks better if you don't. So there I am on that. The yarn in that, I believe, is Apple Tree. It's a very deep stash dive. I bought it in 2014 at Stitches West. And can't believe that 7 years have gone by. Like, I feel like that was yesterday. I remember buying it. And it was interesting. It's very thin. They call it a light fingering. No, it's not. It's a lace weight. There's no way to believe this is a light fingering. And they're saying it's 560 yards. I'm looking at this skein thinking, is it? This cake, really. Is this thing mislabeled? Because I've knitted with others of their stuff and it wasn't this thin. At any rate, I'm treating it like a lace weight. And I'm using a D as in dog hook. They're really pretty socks. Poor sock number one. If only I could finish the toe decreases. I've been stalled on them for a week, which leads me to blush as I confess about what's going on with the wild lettuce shawl, which is dead fracking nothing. I brought it all with me today, thinking I would knit when I got to the ocean. Actually, I didn't. I went to Starbucks and I played Harry Potter Wizards Unite, and I drank tea with cream in it, cold tea. And I had a terrific sushi lunch. Did I mention that? Okay. Twin Faces vest is still in transit to me from North Carolina. I'm very much looking forward to getting that back. I'd like to finish it soon because our birthday is coming up. The temperature blanket, I put a picture in because I could not resist, of the heat wave. And it's very beautiful. And I went to the site, I bought it's in Knit Picks yarn. And my color for 100 degrees to, 101 to 110 is called Rouge. Yeah, they're not selling it anymore. This could be a challenging summer. What I will have to do, if I can't find another acrylic in a close enough color and I really don't feel like color matching, I'll do the Ravelry search to see if anybody's willing to sell some if they have it. And if I can't find it there, I'll just go, there's a solid red that I was using for 111 degrees and above. I'll just go to the solid red for anything over, 101 and over. I'm not particularly cheesed off about this. It's not that huge a loss. I don't think I'm going to look at this blanket forever and go, oh no, if only I'd had more Rouge. I was listening to the Knitmores, and it's the first time I heard them with Genevieve really fully integrated as a member of the podcasting team. So I just want to say, hey Genevieve, welcome. It was cool, really cool listening to you. I'm bringing that up because they talked about what they're wearing in terms of knitwear. I admire that. Northern California, it's the Arctic, okay? Here in Southern California, now I don't happen to think of their location as Northern California. It is. I mean, everybody refers to it as Northern California. But really, if you look at a map, it's kind of the north part of the central. I'm just saying. But even so, whoa, dudes, you're wearing knitted socks and stuff. Of course, Jasmine talks about a jaunt into San Francisco. Yeah, San Francisco, any time of year, you could wear a sweater, given the right setup, because that's what San Francisco is like. Nonetheless, I am saying all this because I'm mentioning I'm not wearing a darn thing I've made. But if you are wearing something you've knitted, I salute you. And Red's Knits, if you're up in Montana, of course you're wearing things you knitted and wove and spun and quilted. However, I'm in Southern California, you know. I'm sitting here at 75 degrees with the windows open, just really basking in the cool. Okie dokie. Dizzy Blondes. Well, we had quite a week in Dizzy Blondes. I could probably retitle this segment, When Spinning Attacks. Spinning didn't attack, my stupid did. I have been working on 2 pounds of a 50/50 silk BFL roving that I got years ago from Village Spin and Weave when they still had a brick and mortar. They're now online as villagespinweave.com, and you really should look at their stuff. Okay, and I had bought it to use with my walking wheel, Elizabeth, and got a repetitive stress motion from trying that. So I finally got to it and said, I'm just going to spin this. It's beautiful stuff. So that went well, except for reasons I can't explain, I did the singles as an S-ply counterclockwise as opposed to a Z-ply or a Z-ply clockwise. That's okay. I mean, it really doesn't matter. Except then I went on to ply the single the same way. I did not switch to a Z or a Z ply. I just went to the S-twist. So anyway, I got this huge amount of 3-ply onto the bobbin. And I said, okay, that is way more than fits on a bobbin. What is going on here? And then I looked at it and went, oh no. Because I did quite a lot of it. I was on the second bobbin when I realized it. And so, of course, I looked at the end. Now, you know, talk about unbalanced, right? That it's singles are going into an S-twist. And then the ply is in an S-twist. So it's way loaded with that counterclockwise energy. And you could see it. It was popping apart where it was coming off the bobbin at the end. And, you know, I thought, oh no, I've lost, blah, blah, blah. And then I went, what's the matter with me, man? I just reloaded it and changed the direction of the twist on my electric eel wheel 6, Elspeth. And I just ran it through again. And it just worked terrific. It was truly weird because I was doing a long draft and watching it reverse the spin. So behind my thumbs was the wrong direction ply, and in front of my thumbs was the right direction ply, all at the same time. It was kind of mind-bending. But I thought, you know, my stupid should be your gain. So I took a picture of what the plied double S yarn looks like, and that's on the top. And you can see it's just popping apart as it lies across my fingers. And you can see it's way over twisted, way over S-twisted with way too much energy in that direction. If you look at the next picture, I put the 2 bobbins side by side. For some reason, my camera switched them top to bottom. But on the top is the wrong twist, and on the bottom is the proper twist after I corrected it. And if you look at it, you can see the proper twist is looser somewhat, but it's more because it's fluffy, that it just popped out and rebalanced, and it's happy. And so I did finish this yarn. I washed it, that is, and skeined it and all that, and it looks terrific. And I'll try to get the pictures in next week. And then I went on to, I still had a little bit left, and so I'm finishing up spinning the raw wool, and then I'll move on to plying it. And I will continue to ply it back to front. I will continue to do the ply in a Z twist because it's all Z twist now, so it might as well all match. And it looks terrific. You would never think I'd had any problem, but I blew an extra 3 or 4 days on that project. Well, it's all grist for the mill, right? It's all stuff we learned from. I'm reminded of the great Barbara Walker saying to the equally great Elizabeth Zimmerman, remind your knitters that we knit with sheep. We're not supposed to be sheep. In other words, be brave when you knit. Okay, a strategy, radical acceptance. And I had notes on this, and I left them home. But the notes really come down to this. I was reviewing them last night and thinking about it. And it was radical acceptance is about sometimes the world just stinks. And there is no way around it. And I'm watching several patients work their way through this. And I'm thinking of back in the days when I did solely workers' compensation. I saw a lot of situations that just stunk. People lost limbs in machinery. I mean, that bad. Okay? But we all have those experiences in life where someone we love dies, or we lose a limb in industrial machinery. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to feel like I'm jinxing the universe. Or you find out you've got a serious illness, or your car engine dies, or whatever. I mean, there's a big range of really disastrous things, happily, that can happen to humans. What a cheery little podcast we're becoming here. And that's radical acceptance, is simply saying, I'm going to deal with it. You can thrash around, complain, be upset, all you want. And certainly there's a time and a place for that. But sooner or later, you have to hit radical acceptance, where you just buckle down and say, this is what it is, and I'm going to cope with it. And to do that, what you're really doing is you're accepting that there are things in this world that are not your fault, you cannot change them, but you also have to ask questions of the situation when you feel braced enough to do it. And the point of the questions you're going to ask is, if I can't make this better, how will I stop myself from making it worse? So, if somebody is sick in my family, can I make it better? Well, you can't cure them. Can you help them? If you can't help them, can you at least not hurt them, not make it worse? And that is much more challenging than you would think. I see a lot of patients who are in hate with someone who we would normally expect them to be in love with. And I see a lot of patients who are dealing with unchangeable relationship situations, and they have to somehow get through. A lot of this are kids. A lot of what I'm talking about are kids who just have had enough. They want to get out on their own. They want to strike out, and they can't, for some reason, strike out on their own. And they often make the mistake of deciding to fight with their parents over this. And it kind of makes me cringe for a lot of reasons. But in some cases, I would agree that the parents aren't very good at their jobs. You know, be that as it may, there's no abuse or I'd be reporting it. It's just not a good match. And that's one of the places where you really need to think about, don't make it worse. And you see it all the time in all sorts of contexts. Your boss is yelling at you and being unfair, and they're not ready to listen. They're kind of babbling at you. Telling them they're an idiot or fighting back is going to make it worse. Usually, you want to work on your interpersonal skills, and I got a lot of those coming up later, in the later episodes, okay? But the important thing is, if a situation is unfair and unchangeable, you don't make it worse. Because there are times in this world where it's really just tough, and you can't make it better. Well, speaking of making it worse, put a lid on it. I got this recipe. I needed chocolate, and I needed it bad. If you didn't know, let me be the first to tell you, chocolate cravings are caused by usually a shortage of magnesium. And magnesium, in case you were wondering, is not well digested through the standard swallow a pill route. That actually is like eating a rock, so I'm told. Humans take magnesium in most effectively through their skin, believe it or not. So if you're craving chocolate, I'm not making it up. Go take an Epsom salt bath. Really. You wonder why I was making bath bombs for a while there. I haven't made any recently, but that's another story. I planned to sort of shift gears on that one. But anyway, there I was craving magnesium with a container of magnesium vitamins on my desk. I decided to make something chocolate. And I found this recipe for the Wendy's Frosty keto style. It may be that I don't remember the way a Frosty tastes. I'm just saying, this tasted pretty weird to me, but I did enjoy it nonetheless. And the recipe, there's a picture of the recipe in the show notes, but in case you're not looking at the show notes, it is a cup of heavy whipping cream, and you whip it until it's almost stiff. And to it, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder. I used a very good red cocoa that we're fond of. And a tablespoon of almond butter. I had peanut butter, but that was fine. And I can't read if it's a teaspoon or a tablespoon. Looks like it's a teaspoon, that should be enough, of vanilla extract. And then you can sweeten it any way you want. They say 5 drops of liquid stevia. I used a generous teaspoon of Swerve. Okay, you whip that until it is stiff. With the peanut butter or almond butter in it, it will get very thick and chunky-ish. So you whip that baby up. And it's not bad, just like that. But you put it in the freezer and it gets truly weird. It gets like butter. It's really good butter. Is it like a Wendy's Frosty? I don't think so. One thing I might try with it, and there's a picture of it too, in its whipped up form, sitting at the bottom of a tin bowl from my freezer. I would consider adding crushed ice to this. Might give you a little more Wendy's Frosty. Yeah, okay, never mind. Well, it was worth a try, and it did settle my craving, and it does digest reasonably well. Oh dear, perhaps it's time to get on to, oh shoot, well, let me tell you, the Fit Desk. People have now said to me, you should be getting a commission for selling these things, because several people have written and said, yep, we got one. That might be what Karen RS75 had asked me. Somebody said, how high is the desk? And I believe it's 45 inches, somewhere between 42 and 45 inches. I'm 60 inches tall when I'm standing there. No, it has to be, that's probably about right. About 42 or 43 inches, I would think. It's a pretty good desk for me because I have a tablet on it. I'm not trying to write on it, so it might be a little high for writing on. Now, when I'm sitting on the bike seat, it's just great for writing on. When I'm standing and using it as a standing desk, it might be a little high because usually I'm leaning into it and I'm holding my remarkable tablet up against the handlebars, which I have raised about as high as they can go, and I'm thinking about lowering them. Anyway, boy, am I happy with that thing. Oh, Lordy, I'm happy. And somebody was reading reviews and somebody said, well, I've had it 5 years and it fell apart, blah, 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 blah. I don't know why. They have repair kits for it. But if you're thinking about that, remember that if you buy a home exercise bike, most of them have 1 to 2 year warranties. In other words, they're not lasting 5 years, guys, no matter what bike you buy. However, if I get 5 years out of this thing for $350, I'll be a pretty happy camper. I think $70 a year for my own exercise bike, yep, no problems there. What does that even come out to per day? Anyway, I rode it this week, and I'm over 100 miles now on it. and it's holding up just great. I was reading one review and they said, I put 250 miles on it in 1 year. I'm thinking, try 1 month. I tend to ride about 11 miles, I would say, on the average. Maybe a little more than that. Although looking at this week's numbers, I'm not sure. But you can see I put together a bunch of the pictures with their mileages for each day. I have 4 days on there. And what is that? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday during a FaceTime call. And one of those days I did my video with Jasmine. We were messing around together on Instagram with some listeners, and I actually added 5 more talking to her, so I'm actually about 5 miles short on that. Anyway, I just wanted to show you, like, that's sort of what a working week looks like for me. And what I do normally is I stay in my regular study or studio in the mornings because it's cool, but in the afternoons that part of the house heats up. And so I go into the master bedroom where the fit desk is, and I work from there in the afternoons. So usually you're looking at about what I do in 2 to 3 hours of talking to patients after lunch. And I probably put most of that on in the first 90 minutes, and then I start alternating sitting and standing. Moral of story, love the fit desk. A few people have bought variations on it. Thank you. I'm complimented. On to the fluffy books. Well, I started 2 new ones this week. I am reading a book called Kindred by Rebecca Ragg Sykes, and I can't recommend it enough. It's fascinating. It's a very humanized version of what we know about Neanderthal hominids. And it's really interesting. And she's just kind of myth-busting and trying to talk about what their everyday life would have been like and trying to assess the anthropological and evolutionary histories that have been built in the last 150 years. It's absolutely riveting. Absolutely. And it's really wonderful to read a very careful scientific reconstruction with very thorough descriptions of how anthropologists and the various other scientists who've studied Neanderthals have evaluated what they've found. It's just fascinating. She, in the beginning of every chapter, goes into a little flight of fancy about trying to describe what it's like first person to be a Neanderthal. These are short. They're actually pretty good. I have to give her credit. They're very skillfully done. But it's just amazing to sort of catch up on the whole Neanderthal thing. This came out of 2 things. One, Jasper Fforde, in the Thursday Next series, he describes Neanderthals as being recreated in the alternate universe of Thursday Next as a genetic experiment, and then they're stuck with them, that they're intelligent and they cannot reproduce and they love children and they're very different from humans and they're major characters in the last of the books and they're terrific. It's a very wonderful use and a very creative use, I must say. And so I started thinking, what do I really know about Neanderthals? And then this just popped up in my feed one day. I think it popped up as on sale or something on Amazon. So I said, why not? And I'm really, really glad I bought it. The other one I'm reading is Evan Above by Rhys Davis, or Evans. I think it's singular. The guy's name is Evan Evans, so it could be either. Rhys Davis wrote one of my favorite series, Her Royal Spyness, which are absolutely fluffy, silly, and a lot of fun mysteries about a young woman who is descended from a Scottish line and vaguely related to the royal family of England in the 1920s. She's not really in the line of succession. Well, she is in the beginning, and she gradually gets less and less in it. They're terrific fun, the Royal Spyness series. So I thought I would read her I'm a Cute Welsh Detective Living in an Adorable Snowdonia Village series, and that's Evan Evans. And it takes a while to get into it, it is a bit predictable, like, oh look, here's the quirky middle-aged lady who's making idiotic claims that turn out to have some seed of the truth in them, and here's all the tourist jokes, and there's a lot of Welsh, which I'm really enjoying the guy reading it on Audible because I'm listening to it. And I would tell you, if you're going to read the Evan Evans series by Rhys Davis, and you can tell by her name she's Welsh, if you're going to read that series, you want to listen to it on Audible because you're going to wrap your head twice around yourself trying to pronounce the Welsh names. And it's a lot of fun and a really good book once you get into it. It took a few chapters because there were a lot of cliches. And then finally, my beloved found my copy of Beowulf, translated and with commentary by Howell D. Chickering Jr. I could not even find this when I went onto Amazon, which I think is a shame. It's a fine translation. So, I've been meandering through Beowulf. Now, have you ever heard Anglo-Saxon, which is also called Old English? Beowulf has been dated from somewhere between 600 AD to 1000. It's really hard to know the date because they weren't writing things down in that era. So the written version is considerably later, and they've had to kind of go backwards in history and say, when could it have happened? I just tell students 700 AD because it sounds cool, doesn't it? If you have never heard Anglo-Saxon, brace yourself, here it comes. This is the opening. Let me see how far I want to go on this. What we Yardena in Yerdagum Theod Kinninga Frim Gefrunan Hutha either lingus Ellen Fremedon. Oft Schild Scheffing. You notice how you can hear these little moments where you almost recognize it. Sheathena Vreatum Monegum Magdum Meodosetla Ovdea Exode Eol Sivin Arest Werth Feeschaft Funden Hey thys Frofre Gebad Weax under Woknum Weorth Mindum tha O that him ach wilech para imb setendra Ofer Kronrade hier in Schulde Gumban Gilden. That was good killing. Okay, that's actually 11 lines. In modern English, it's, hey, we have heard of the glory of the Spear Danes in the old days, the kings of tribes, how noble princes showed great courage. Often Schild Scheffing seized mead benches from enemy troops. From many a clan he terrified warriors, even though first he was found a waif helpless. For that came a remedy. He grew under heaven, prospered in honors, until every last one of the bordering nations beyond the Whale Road had to heed him and pay him tribute. He was a good king. Now, of course, if you're a knitter, it's, hey, listen, there's this bunch of barbarians running around in Jutland in the north. One of them was Schild Scheffing. He used to seize riches from the enemy, even though he was born an orphan and a waif. But you know what? He got really big, and he prospered, and he scooped up all the honors and was recognized by all the neighboring nations, even those across the ocean. And they had to listen to him and pay him tribute. Man, he was good. Could he knit? Probably not. But he had other people to do that for him. Actually, null binding, but that's another poem. Okay, so that's Beowulf. And one of the things you probably could get from that, my reading, I haven't read Old English about 30 years out loud, so be patient. But one of the things you can get from that is, let me tell you, reading this in the original has nothing to do with the translation. That just the sound, the change in the sort of stridence and the forcefulness, all the consonants, the blends, it's meant to sound, I can't even think of a good way to describe it. It's meant to sound, the Klingon theme from traditional Star Trek. That's what I was just doing. It's meant to sound like that. If you want to hear Old English, turn on the Gorn episode. It's called Arena, from the original Star Trek. And when things are getting really heavy and you're getting the dun 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 dun. That's probably what this poem should sound like, because it's meant to be delivered aloud to an audience, and it's meant to excite them and really get them revved up and ready to fight. It's meant to be recited by a shope or a bard, same thing, in the mead hall while everybody is eating greasy pieces of whatever meat is on order tonight, and then throwing them into the rushes on the floor so the hounds can get them. And they're all hanging out talking about their last great hunt or their last great battle. And so this is, sooner or later, everybody's kind of pleasantly drunk on the mead, and they go, hey, yo, get the bard, get him, we're all getting loaded, everybody's falling asleep, and then get the bard up. And he's the only guy in the room who's probably not half lit on meat at this point, and he's going to tell this kind of poem, and it's going to be you know, and the idea is to get everybody juiced up and excited. The bards were treasured among the Anglo-Saxons for this ability. They were highly respected. They were kind of quasi-sacred. So there you go. A little blast from the past. 1400 years ago. Passed like a second. All right, something I really like. Well, since we're into what is bardic, Phineas and Ferb. If you have not seen Phineas and Ferb, please go watch it. It's on Disney. It is a series made in, I think, the late 90s. It is side-splittingly funny, and it is really, really clever. And there's now a lot of movies. They've got a Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, a Phineas and Ferb Marvel movie. There's one about Candace takes over the universe. Okay, the premise of Phineas and Ferb. Phineas is a little boy. I think we're supposed to believe he's 8 or 9 in the very beginning. And he has a sister, Candace. And he has a stepbrother, Ferb, that we don't know what happened to Phineas's biological dad. He's not in the story at all, but his mom is on her second marriage, her British husband, and so we have Ferb. And Ferb is very tall and silent and has googly eyes, but that's okay, because Phineas's head is a triangle. And Phineas and Ferb are about the same age, and the whole premise is, it's summertime and school is out. And so as the introductory song, sung by Phineas and played by Ferb, apparently on electric guitar, says, there's 104 days of summer vacation until school comes along just to end it. And I can't think how this next song is. Something like the radical challenge for our generation is finding a good way to spend it. So each episode is something special that Phineas and Ferb get up to for each day of their summer vacation. And the thing is, they're not quite normal. They're both little geniuses. So they do some pretty wild things. So meanwhile, you have older sister Candace, who just wants to be a normal teenager. She seems to be 14 or 15. Oh, no, wait, she has a driver's permit. She's 16, somewhere in the series. And she has a guy she has a crush on, Jeremy, who's like the nicest human ever. And Candace is devoted to being in charge of Phineas and Ferb. She wants authority. She wants to boss them around. And they just kind of, they're nice to her, but they just kind of ignore a lot of her demands. And so she's always trying to get them busted. And they do these pretty wild things. I don't want to ruin it. Like in one episode, they build their own amusement park and it's real. And so Candace spends the whole series trying to get them busted. And meanwhile, as if that wasn't enough, they have a pet platypus named Perry. Turns out Perry is a secret agent, and he is trying to bust a guy named Dr. Doofenshmirtz, who is a parody of every comic strip bad guy, from Boris Badenov in Rocky and Bullwinkle through all sorts of mad scientists. And he's got this whole backstory about how he was not loved by his parents, and they loved his goody two-shoes older brother, who we later find out is the mayor of the town that they're all living in. Doof has his own theme song. I can't even tell you. You just have to watch it. Music is brilliantly worked into the plots. The songs are amazingly good. They do all sorts of parody music. Seriously, if you haven't seen Phineas and Ferb, you really need to go watch it. And it's on the Disney Channel, and now all the Phineas and Ferb movies seem to be there too. Okay, on to the blather. Well, the Eleanor update, she's fine. Her nose looks almost normal. There's still a few raw spots. We cut back on the meds per the vet's instructions, because when we're using this extremely strong med on her nose, she tends to neurotically chew on her left paw, her left forepaw. We don't know why. But slacking off on the med, she stops chewing on herself. But the vet had told us slack off because it's very, very strong and clearly has a strong effect on her body because it's meant to be an immunosuppressant for lupus. So she looks great and is doing great. She is an indoor dog because sunburn on her nose is what kicked all this off. And we can't let her get sunburned. So she's having a great time because she's an indoor dog. She does need a grooming, something terrific. She's a giant furball in 100-degree heat. It's coming. I had a lovely porch swing this past week. I think it was Wednesday night with Jasmine Knitmore, with a brief visit from Gigi Knitmore and the occasional side comment from Genevieve Knitmore. So it was lovely, and you can even see we got North Dakota Jen in the act. So I got her little picture in there too in my notes because I was so delighted to see her. Hello! Okay, meanwhile, jury duty was supposed to start today. Well, I didn't get called yesterday. That was happy news for my weekend, so I got 2 days off. And I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not I want to be called because I'm feeling just a little bit burned out on work. I am not sure why. I actually think it's the heat affecting me. My vacation, I took a vacation in April and decided that since that one was 7 months out from my previous vacation, I wasn't going to try that again. I was really burned out by April. And so I'm trying to take my vacation in the end of August, beginning of September. I did not want to go to Sunnybank, but I just decided instead that I'd really rather do something interesting with the family or go north and hang out with some friends in Northern California. Follow my drift? So we will see how that goes. So, the nice thing about my jury duty, going way back, is that it covers the end of one pay period and the beginning of the next. They really timed this perfectly so that even if I take the days without pay, I'm only going to take like 2 days each pay period. So that was good. I Rock Knits. If you don't know Corey, you should. And she has a great account on Instagram, and she has a podcast. I am really not listening to podcasts right now, so I'm ashamed to say it, because her podcast is one of the best of the bunch. And she's incredibly skilled. And Corey, which is C-O-R-I, so she spelled it backwards to get I Rock Knits. Corey keeps posting these wonderful tips on Instagram. And I finally took a picture of the one about an alternative way to avoid the sort of jiggle between rows when you change colors on a sweater. Because I never get that right. Every time I try, it comes out wackadoodle looking. So I put the tip in the notes. Frankly, I did it as much for me as for you. So I hope you enjoy it. But it's a reminder to tell you, you really want to go listen to Corey. And then somebody sent me a photo. This has to be 1983. I'm pretty sure I can date it because of my wild hair. That was back in the days when my father demanded that I wear my hair short. He did not want people to know I had curly Italian hair. I'm not making that up. He was afraid, anyway, he didn't want people to know. He had had a hard life being raised as an Italian in America. And, he didn't want to give that one away, I guess. Although he was very proud of our last name. It's a very confusing thing to be Italian in America. Let me put it that way, to be the child of immigrants and all that. So he had a confusing time with that. But anyway, I went through a phase where I was growing out my very short hair and trying to brush it back. Sadly, there was an interim phase where I looked like a poodle on the loose. And there's a picture of me looking like a poodle on the loose with my friends from left to right, Susan and Roxanne, both of whom are college professors in their own right. And there I am lying on the grass. I believe we're across the Avon from Trinity Church in Stratford-on-Avon. But there I am lying there. I think Socks is probably reading aloud, and I don't know what Susan and I were doing outside of me asking who took this picture, because I don't know who was with us that took that picture. But there we are. And I'm very young. And it sort of made me think about, wow, because Susan posted it and Roxanne said, wow, we look so young. And I thought, do we? And I thought, well, we're all thin and small the way girls are in their 20s. At any rate, I was sort of thinking about all the changes. And I thought, yeah, you know, a year ago I was doing all these projects and working on all these shifts in our lifestyle because of the quarantine. But also, my hair has never been happy. It's always been very dry and sort of hard and brittle. Anyway, so now it's been over a year. I went to coconut oil and all natural shampoos in bar form to get rid of all the plastics. But also, look, all these wonderful conditioners that cost $30 a bottle, nothing fixed my hair. Nothing. I mean, it would fix for like 3 days and then be horrible again. So I gave up and I said, you know, if I didn't have this idea of what I should use based on all these television commercials that now I don't even see because I don't watch television and I rarely watch movies, what would I be doing to my hair? And I said, I'd be looking at it and saying, you're awfully fragile, dry, and brittle. So I started brushing coconut oil through my hair. Meantime, I followed Michelle Miller's lead, that's Fickle Knitter, the knitwear designer. Michelle had gone to using all-natural bar soap shampoos probably about 6 months before I did. And she had mentioned it to me, and without thinking, I sort of internalized that and said, I shall do that. And then realized later, yeah, that was her prompting, actually. And so I went to shampoo from, I think this was Chagrin Valley. I've got so much of it around the house, I don't need to buy more. And I bought all these bar shampoos on sale from them. And it's been really great. But it's a very different experience than commercial shampoos. It's like soaping your hair. And it works really nicely, I have to say. And then I said, well, what about conditioner? And I tried conditioning bar shampoos from them. You know, conditioner bars from them, rather. And they worked nicely, but I wasn't that overwhelmed. And anyway, I went to just oiling my hair with coconut oil that I bought in a jar at Trader Joe's for like $6. Big jar. I'm still working. I'm not even halfway through the jar at this point. And I realized in the beginning they were saying just put like a dime size. No, I put about $10 worth. No, if you were going by the size and it was dime size, go for about $10. Anyway, I put a lot in my hair in the beginning because it was so dry. And the more I worked with it, the more I realized, like, wow, it's dry. Well, it's not dry anymore. Now I really oil it about once every 3 weeks, and it changed. My hair changed. By oiling it and getting rid of all the commercial shampoo, it changed. My hair grew back very thick. I know this sounds unbelievable, but a lot of my gray fell out, and it grew back blonde-brown. I got a lot of my natural hair color back. I don't know if this works for everybody, but it sure worked for me. My hair is very, very thick. It's where it was before menopause hit. You know, in menopause, my hair got very thin and brittle and gray, even worse than it had been. My hair looks terrific. And I now have to brush it out very, very thoroughly. That I now, every night and every morning, take a soft bristle brush to it, and I really work my way through it, and I am spreading the grease down it. There's something about getting all that plastic goo off my scalp and all the commercial dyes and stuff. My hair looks terrific. It really does, and I have not spent money on hair products in over a year, and my hair is doing great. To my surprise, I will wake up with it too greasy. That will actually be like, oh, sticky greasy, and then I just do another really thorough brushing. My ends are not a disaster. I haven't had it cut. I think the last time I cut it myself in the beginning of March of 2020, and I haven't cut it since, and it looks just fine. So that was a bit of a shock, but that's all worked out really well. So it's been a year of changes, and Minerva gets the last word about that. There's a picture of Minerva, and she's lying stretched out. Why do I have that picture there? Cats only do that when they trust you. Cats will not expose their bellies unless they trust you. Minerva has been with us 3 years, and I think I mentioned quite a while back now that she's just a very nervous, suspicious cat. So I really went on this campaign of nonviolence. Even if she bit me, I wouldn't yell at her. I wouldn't scream at her. I would just try to disengage her and talk her down. And it's worked so well. And one of the really noticeable things is the trust now. That she gets on the bed almost every morning and pushes her head into my face. And she wants to head bonk, which is also a sign of feline affection. But I was startled when I realized that now as I'm working, she will often come in and lie down on the floor next to my chair as I talk to patients, and she will simply stretch out and expose her belly. And in the beginning, like all stupid humans, I would touch her belly, which would make her coil up and have a hard time. And now she just lies there and leaves her belly exposed. And like a mature human who is practicing nonviolence and non-threateningness with a person who weighs, let me think, about 1/8 of my weight. Like that mature person, I no longer touch her belly because, hey, here's an idea. She doesn't like it. So maybe I don't have to do things the cat doesn't like just to prove I can, you know? And it's amazing to me now how many times I used to do that with my pets. And it really makes you wonder, like, oh, like you think it's funny or it's cute and all that. And you think, well, you know, it's actually just a little cruel. I don't want to take away all your fun, guys. If you're patting your cat's stomach and the cat's okay with it, please enjoy yourself. But this is a rather sensitive little being. And she was taken from her mom very young, because I got her when she was probably, like, her eyes were just open, and they had spayed her, which was too young, but I think they were planning to gas all those kittens because it's a high-kill shelter, and I think they were just thrilled to get rid of one of them without having to put it down. So they, like, spayed her and handed her to me instead of keeping her for the extra 2 weeks I suspect they should have. So I think I got this kitten who was taken from her mother at, like, 4 weeks old, and she's badly socialized, and one of the losses there was trust and feelings of safety. So anyway, this belies the fact that my son, 15-year-old kid, can pick her up and practically swing her over his head by the tail. She doesn't bite him, she doesn't threaten him. But she clearly found me big and scary for a long time. So in the last year, what is one of the biggest changes in my life? Well, Minerva trusts me, and I'm rather complimented. So there we go. That's a lot of stuff, and I'll probably edit this down. But anyway, it's been lovely talking to you. I've got to wend my way home. It's about 7 p.m. now, and it's starting to get a little gold pink around here, which means the sunset is coming. So it has been an absolute joy talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me. The show notes, of course, are at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or on our Ravelry group. And in the meantime, I want you to know that here in Ventura, a lot of people are masked. I wasn't expecting that. When I went into Starbucks, no masks. But when I went into Blaze Pizza and I went into Barnes & Noble, lots of masks and lots of people still being careful, which makes me feel good. Remember, the kids under 12 have not had the chance to get vaccinated. They are still vulnerable, guys. So please, wear your mask, wash your hands, get vaccinated if you can, socially distance, because the really important thing here, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.